Good afternoon. The Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. For the record, today is Tuesday, June 30th, 2020, and the time now is 3 o'clock. Notice for this budget hearing was disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was issued on Tuesday, June 16, 2020, and second notice was issued on Friday, June 26, 2020. The committee will hear and accept testimony on Bill 282-35 LS, the fiscal year 2021 Appropriation Act, as requested by the governor, relative to the Guam Regional Transit Authority fiscal year 2021 budget request. I'd like to recognize my colleagues that have joined me this afternoon. I will begin with Vice Speaker Telina Nelson and Senator Kelly Mars Taitano, Senator Regine Bescoli, and Senator Jim Moylan. General rules for this budget hearing. Those testifying on behalf of the department or agency will be recognized by myself. And we have Mr. Selba Bauta and Kathy Blas. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony. For photocopying, testimony may be read and lengthy testimony should be summarized. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. Panel and my colleagues will be discussing budget 2021, and if we want to discuss a little bit of 2020, it'll be allowed, but at the minimum. Individuals will be allowed to present oral testimony, and you are asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by the members of the committee. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for this proceeding. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and or may be asked to leave or be escorted removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. You will state your name and title for the record. At this time, I ask the panel members from the Guam Regional Transit Authority to rise and for our Sergeant at Arms to please swear them in. Thank you. I would ask now Mr. Babalta to please present his budget 2021.
Half a day, Mr. Chairman, St. Agustin, and members of the 35th Guam Legislature. My name is Celestine Cruz Bebauta, Interim Executive Manager of the Guam Regional Transit Authority. On behalf of the GRT Board of Directors and staff, I would like to express our sincere gratitude for allowing me the opportunity to present GRTA's budget for FY21. The budget I present to this august body of Guam's government is what we believe will enable GRTA to provide Guam a safe and reliable transit system. 10 years ago, GRTA was created under Public Law 30-5. It was sponsored by former Senator Adolfo Palacios and signed into law by then Governor Felix Camacho. The provisions and the intents of the statute are excellent. Board of Directors be an autonomous agency, relieve traffic congestion, provide transportation needs of the persons with disabilities and the less fortunate people of Guam. Yes, GRTA is over 10 years old. However, when the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration took over in January 2019, the following are what we inherited. 1,237,500 was to be returned back to the federal government. The purpose of the funds is for the design and building of GRTA facility. Funding was available for design since 2012 and building since 2013. $400,000 was earmarked by the U.S. Department of Transportation for Guam since 2005 that no one knew about. Only 7 out of 23 buses and vans were operational. GRTA is still lingering in a temporary facility. GRTA was leasing buses at $74 an hour due to not enough buses to support fixed and paratransit routes. GRTA was paying $53 an hour for paratransit services, and it was still providing buses, gas, oil, and tires. GRTA was also paying $52 an hour for fixed routes, and it was also providing buses, gas, tires, and oil. Persons with disabilities were being denied transportation to their dialysis appointments. The one-click transportation management system was not purchased, funding available since 2012. The contractor was counting bus fares and depositing the funds in the bank. $55,000 initially was unaccounted for. Buses were not ordered and funding was available since 2017. Improving Guam's transit system. Since January 2019, my staff and I have been diligent in moving GRTA in the right direction with full force. The following are what we have achieved. We saved Guam $1,237,500. $237,500 will be used to design GRTA's facility that will include maintenance, transit operations, and administration, all under one roof. The $1 million and another $1.5 million from Y19 FTA grant is going to be used to construct the GRTA facility. We do have a piece of property to build the facility. We found $400,000 at U.S. Department of Transportation that was earmarked for Guam since 2005 to buy paratransit vehicles. We purchased the one-click transportation management system. It will transform transit operations from paper to technology. Riders can reserve their rides on mobile application, pay with smart card. We will be able to gather data that will enable us to make good decisions and for reporting. GRTA staff are currently being trained and will go live with the system before the end of the year. Currently, 17 out of 23 buses and vans are operational. GRTA is no longer leasing buses. Persons with disabilities are not denied transportation. GRTA submitted $1,083,000 procurement package to purchase 14 passenger buses in 2019. We submitted that package to the AG for review in February 2019. They completed that in May 2019. We submitted a requisition to GSA in June 2019. Mr. Chairman and Senators, that procurement package is still pending at GSA. GRTA also submitted to GSA requisition for emergency procurement of 14 passenger buses in May 2019, and it's still pending. We have $500,000 for that procurement package. GRTA took over paratransit operations, and we were able to save government of Guam over $200,000. GRTA will be preparing, actually we are already preparing to take over the fixed route, and we will save the government almost $500,000. We programmed $500,000 from FY20 Federal Transit Administration funds for park and ride at Dedido, and that will enable us to establish commuter routes to Agana and down to Navy, from Dedido, Hotel Road to Tamuning, and of course GCC to UOG for our students. So what does Guam need to improve its transit system? The dividends that Guam will gain by improving its transit system is insurmountable. Improvements to the transit system are long overdue and must be made now because of the following. We're going to be able to reduce congestion. We're going to be able to create a healthy environment for our people. The only mode of transportation for most of our vulnerable island people is through GRTA. GRTA is important in growing Guam's economy. We'll be able to transport workers, students, and persons with disabilities. We're going to be able to minimize our people in paying expensive gas prices. We're going to be able to lower the maintenance cost of our local residents. We're going to reduce accidents, lessen traffic deaths, decrease road rage, reduce the maintenance cost of Guam's roads, increase the revenue and income of GRTA by transporting military, tourist, and off-island workers. We're going to be able to lower earned income tax credit. We're going to be able to reduce dependence on social programs for some of our people when they're able to go to work, for those who don't have transportation. So let's ask ourselves, what does GRTA need to improve Guam's mass transit system? The Guam Regional Transit Authority is laser focused in its quest to advance the island's transit system. While there are quite a few requirements, upgrading the island's transit system is achievable. We must stay on track because GRTA has begun enhancing the system. GRTA's needs are as follows. GRTA needs to purchase more buses, as noted on Guam's 2030 transportation plan. Need to have about 50 buses, and was noted that Guam needs to invest $30 million. With the help of the Federal Transit Administration, we may be able to achieve that number through FTA funds. It is vital to support GRTA's budget to the fullest. We need to make that GRTA's budget flexible and lump sum. We must encourage GSA to purchase buses for GRTA in a timely manner. We need to make GRTA autonomous, allow it to manage procurement and human resources recruitment. Its track record, Mr. Chairman and Senators, has improved tremendously. Begin to privatize public parking except AB Wampat International Airport and Port Authority of Guam, and this is in accordance to Public Law 30-5. Continue working with vendors to advertise on GRTA vehicles and bus shelters. Include transit bus drivers as critical like DPW bus drivers. Allow transit bus drivers with at least G license certification to drive for GRTA even without high school diploma. That certification is certifying that those individuals are qualified to drive buses. We need to allow retired defined benefits Government of Guam bus drivers to work for GRTA without losing their benefits, even on a part-time basis. Continue to transform fixed route transit operations with state-of-the-art technology. GRTA must create a fixed route hybrid transit operations with commuter and mobility on demand DAO right. Chairman St. Agustin and Senators, much have been accomplished by GRTA, but more must be done in order for island people and visitors to have a reliable and safe transit system. It is vital that GRTA strive to be self-sustaining, provide more routes, bus stops, plan and manage public parking, franchising public transportation, seek companies to advertise within GRTA's buses and bus shelters, expand bus service that will meet transportation requirements of the American with Disabilities Act of 1990 and the people of Guam, and of course much more. Moreover, GRTA's FY21 budget proposal identifies the need for additional positions. Each position is tasked to perform mandates of Public Law 30-5. The positions and responsibilities are as follows. Accountant 1, ensure accountability of all financial resources, local funds, federal funds, parking fares, prepare GRTA for audits as noted on Public Law 30-5. Mechanic supervisor, to oversee our maintenance and repair 33 buses and vans and more that are coming. Planner 1, to assist our chief planner in planning for public parking, advertisements, additional bus routes and bus stops, franchising transit buses, to address a 2030 Guam transportation plan. The administrative assistant will assist in procurement of resources, maintenance of administrative and finance records, and to support the administrative officer in all manpower issues. The program coordinator 1 will be responsible in coordinating the implementation of plans such as public parking, franchising of transit buses. Mr. Chairman and Senators, nevertheless, without adequate resources, it will be very difficult for GRTA to transform Guam's transit system to be more aggressive and less dependent on local funds. Therefore, I am respectfully requesting the wholehearted support of this legislature and of course your support, Chairman St. Agustin, in approving GRTA's budget for FY21 at $3,386,163. GRTA will make the best of the budget. Additionally, I would like to state that Chairman Alejo Sablan, Vice Chairman John Leon Guerrero, Mayor Rudy Pacu, Mayor Kevin Suswiku, and veteran David Arans have all been exceptionally supportive of GRTA's mission and goals. And finally, Chairman San Agustin and Senators of the 35th Guam Legislature. Undang ko na sa Diyos Maasi for allowing me to deliver the budgetary needs of GRTA. Without legislative support, it will be extremely challenging for GRTA to accomplish its mission. Respectfully, Celestine Bibauta, MSWED, Interim Executive Manager of GRTA. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to also recognize two other colleagues that have joined us. We have Senator Sabina Perez, and we also have the Oversight Chair of the Guam Regional Transit Authority, Senator Peter Talai. I have a few questions, Sal. How much COVID-19 federal assistance did you receive for 2020 and it's extended to 2021? Did you receive any COVID, any CARES funding?
CARES funding?
CARES, federal funding from the COVID?
Yes, sir. We received, and we're still waiting for FDA to fully approve our application, and we received $2,700,000.
$2,700,000?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good. 2.7. Okay, and how would the assistance impact the departments?
Mr. Chairman, I want you to know, and senators, that this $2.7 million is going to allow us to buy more buses. We need more buses to ensure that the hybrid transit system is going to work. We're looking at purchasing 24 passenger buses. Okay. So, if you, and I'm quite sure that most of us, if not all of us, go through Route 1, and traffic is tremendously congested. But with our commuter routes that will transport workers down to Agana, down to Navy, down to Hotel Row and Tamuning, from the two most populated villages in Guam, with that park and ride, we're going to be able to reduce that congestion. So $1.7 million is what we had programmed, and it was approved by FDA to use those to buy 24 passenger buses. The remainder of that, we're going to be taking over mobility. We're going to be using that to further our paratransit operations and also to take over fixed route. Okay. So the proposal was approved by the GRTA Board of Directors. We forwarded that up to the Federal Transit Administration, and we were told that hopefully within the next week, it will be approved.
All right, so that's separate from your presentation of the purchase of 14 buses that you're just waiting for GSA to do what they need to do and get it on.
That's correct,
get the
sir.
bus. Okay.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. Another question, does your department have any outstanding retro employee salary payment as a result of the Competitive Wage Act of 2014? Are any of your employees due any retro payment that are owed to them?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, and are you able to settle that within this 2020 budget?
We are working on that, sir.
All right.
And,
okay.
And we do have adequate funding to allow us
settle
to.
it.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. In FY 2021 budget submittal, you showed 8 funded positions for 413,000. Why the increase of 16 personnel in FY 2021? Could you please explain that further? Because I know you did give a presentation which described it all. Is it all related to what your presentation was referring to about taking over the routed routes
Yes,
and
sir.
all that?
The 16 bus drivers that we budgeted in addition to the other FTEs is to support our paratransit operations. And I want you to know, Mr. Chairman and Senators, that since we've taken over paratransit, we have never denied any of our people with disabilities transportation. And prior to this, Attorney Marcy Santos told me on one occasion that one of her client was denied transportation previously, and that person became very sick, and never recovered. So I made it a point to my people that we will not deny any person with disability transportation. Mr. Chairman and Senators, really, we're talking about the most vulnerable people in Guam
That's correct.
that we're transporting.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for making sure. Let's just take care of our most vulnerable
Yeah.
people on Guam.
Okay.
Because there's no reason for them to be denied
Yeah.
transportation.
Yeah,
Not when we have them.
I feel for these people, to be honest with you.
Yes,
And that's why we're working very hard to make sure that our transit system is reliable and safe for our people.
yes, because in the past, a lot of our most vulnerable folks out there were being denied. They're waiting on the side over at Paseo. I remember that, and I was like, wow,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Now, being that we're in COVID-19, you know that some of your special funds may be reduced. Do you anticipate it being reduced because of the COVID? You know, what's been going on?
Sure.
You do anticipate that, right?
Yes, sir, we
Okay,
are.
and how would you be able to supplement your shortage? If there's a shortage, how would you be able to take care of that?
We are, I've got somebody in my staff working on advertisement on our buses and our bus shelters. We are looking at, well, actually, we've applied for federal grants, and with the hope that we'll be awarded. We submitted 2 grant applications. We're looking at, I like to talk to the board of directors. Right now, our bus fares are very minimal. And I'm not saying that we're going to raise bus fares, but, you know, if we do, it will be, you know, in a way that our people will be able to handle any raise that we provide. And the other thing is I've got a staff working on public parking. Like I said before, except for the Guam Airport and the Port Authority of Guam, GRTA, with regards to 30-5, is allowed to manage public parking. And, you know, GCC, UOG, Guam Memorial Hospital, right around here, the ODOE parking. We're looking at that, in that approach, to raise more funding.
All right,
So,
okay.
And really, we do understand the limitations of government of Guam's funding because of COVID-19. So
Got it.
we're anticipating that and we're preparing for it.
All right, and we'll take a look at the public law that 30 you've identified here that deals with the public parking. We can discuss that offline, and
Yes, sir.
there's nothing preventing mass transit from taking over what they have over at the airport or Port Authority. It's all about taking care of our people, not
Yep.
just the agency themselves. Your focusing is the people of Guam, and that says a lot more than just that agency taking care of their own funds. Okay? What is the status of the construction of your new building? Is the federal grant still available for the new building? Is it still
Yes,
ongoing?
sir. Yes, sir. We have $1 million that we saved, and another $1.5 million from FY 18 and 19 from the Federal Transit Administration. So we have a total of $2.5 million that we've reserved for the building of our facility.
Okay,
And I apologize for not bringing. We have a conceptual design of our facility already, and we're working with DPW to get that design going, and hopefully we do groundbreaking, you know, before the end of the year, or you know, a little after the end of the year.
Okay,
And the
and-
purpose of that, Mr. Chairman, is that, you know, again, for the longest time, GRTA is still in a temporary facility. It's very difficult for us to be functional. It's very difficult for us to you know, perform our mission effectively without a permanent facility. And with this, having maintenance, having bus operations, and administration and finance under one roof, that's going to be able to help me and the board provide a more effective leadership and management of the Guam Regional Transit Authority.
All right, so what are we looking at if the conceptual, all the process is done? What is the timeline to break ground and have a building standing?
Sir, I'm looking at by the end of 2021, early 2022, we'll have a GRTA facility.
All right, thank you.
God willing.
All right, on according to 12 Guam Code Annotated, did GRTA adopt an accounting system for non-appropriated funds? Do you have internal controls? You're familiar with that from the military.
Yes, sir. Ms. Catherine Blas, our admin officer, has been very conscientious in making sure that as a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman, every day, or I take it back, Monday to Friday, I had 2 people going down to our contractor who's doing fixed route to count the monies, bring the monies up to GRTA, package those monies, and turn them into Bank of Guam. It's not like before where the contractor was counting the monies and submitting the monies to Bank of Guam without the oversight of GRTA. We're not doing that anymore. We're the ones who are submitting these funds to Bank of Guam.
All right, thank you. Mr. Babauta and my colleagues, I have a memo here. It's from a John C. Younger, I guess he's the Vice Chairman of the GRTA Board. And I'm going to just read out his statement. Good afternoon, my name is John C. Leonguero. I am the Vice Chairman of the GRTA Board. I come before you in full support of this budget. The mission of GRTA from our Governor and Senator Terlai, the Chairman of Transportation, is to provide the people of Guam reliable bus service for our fixed route and paratransit riders. To ensure that GRTA continue and complete its mission, GRTA must be able to purchase vans, passenger bus for transportation, and also ADA bus drivers. I totally agree with Mr. Balto on his presentation of the GRTA budget. Also, by January 2021, GRTA will take over fixed route that is now being serviced by Globenberg Enterprise. Since being on the board for a year now and observing the employees of GRTA, I can truly say that the employees of GRTA conduct themselves in high standards to ensure that the 14 hours, 6 days a week bus service provided to the people of Guam. From our governor, senators, and GRTA staff, I thank you for your time and look forward to have GRTA receive this budget. Thanks for your time. Adios. With that, I ask now the Oversight Chair, Senator Terlai, if he has any question, and you will be followed by Vice Speaker Talina Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to first mention that I just made a tour of the Transit Authority facility over in Tamuning, and let me just say this, and I kind of just have this close interaction with practically all the employees and especially the manager, and I just want to say that the manager and the employees up there are doing an outstanding job, and I can't say anything less other than being professional up there, and they know their work. And I just want to add that I've been in contact with the manager. I've been in contact almost frequently with Mr. Babauta, and we discuss issues, we discuss things that we need to improve, and I know that Mr. Babauta hadn't yet mentioned that he is very passionate on especially making sure that we assist the disabled. One of the things that I wanted to also mention, Mr. Chairman, is that I wrote a letter to GSA, and I wrote a letter to the Director of Administration regarding the delay of the purchases of some of the vehicles, and I know that in time, if we don't really put that thing out and on the bidding process, we might lose more than $500,000 for not acting on that purchases. And also, I just wanted to say that, you know, thank you, Mr. Babauta, for really just giving me the opportunity to to know more about the operation, and I know that you're doing an outstanding job, and I'm pretty sure that in time to come, we will satisfy the mandates of the transit operation. I just wanted to ask because, you know, Mr. John Leon Guerrero had mentioned, and I talked with my staff, with my analysts about, you know, trying to do away with high school graduate in as far as a driver's is concerned, being certified ADA. And, you know, I was discouraged to do that because that informed me that we might be reducing the standard of employees in the government. And I feel that if a person is experienced, have training, you know, because the opportunity to finish school sometimes is not there way back then. So I was preparing to do something and just not require high school graduate as long for bus drivers, because I know that you need those employees, especially if they're trained. And I was discouraged to do that, but I'll make some research on that further. And going back again to the Director of Administration and GSA, I like I said, I wrote a letter to them, and actually they have responded. So they're working on that, and I will continue my job as the chairman for mass transit, or chairperson for mass transit, and I will try to do my best to make sure that we expend all the federal funds, because we're losing time. And if we lose that money, we lose, you know, almost everything that we need to do to satisfy the operation of mass transit. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, can I comment on
Please do.
Senator Terlahi? Senator Terlahi, he just came from the governor's office, and the governor, along with the lieutenant governor and the chief of staff, had assured me that we're going to sit down and engage in dialogue with GSA and try to work together to make sure that we don't delay any of this bus procurement. With regards to the non-high school graduates, you know, we have bus drivers who are very capable. Unfortunately, they didn't complete their high school diploma. But with their G license and the training that we provide our bus drivers, I'm comfortable that these individuals are fully capable to drive for us. And the training that we provide our bus drivers are the passenger assistance, safety and sensitivity training. We provide them with first aid and body care. We provide our bus driver supervisor has put together a training program that forces him to take these drivers out and do on-the-job evaluation. So in the end, the drivers that we put behind the wheel, I'm comfortable that they're going to be able to do a good job for us.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Director. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And for the oversight chair, I would just extend my support. I understand where it's coming from when you need, you know, unfortunately, there's not a line of folks that are applying to be a bus driver. There's not a lot of people out there that got the G license. Mm-hmm. And if Senator Chalai was to introduce a bill for a temporary lifting of that restriction, I would support that. We need to get the mass transit moving.
Thank you.
We don't need to wait.
Thank you.
Let's get it going, and if DOE or any school out there wants to promote it and get our students or our children that are graduates to get a G license and drive a bus, then great.
Absolutely.
But we need to lift whatever we need to. We need to get this thing moving because too much time has passed. Mm-hmm. Too many people in Guam have waited for the bus. There's a lot of folks in Guam that have been and lived in the States. They believe in the bus. They come to Guam, they lost faith for many years. You're bringing back the faith, and let's keep it going, and then we move from there. Madam Vice Speaker, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just telling the oversight chair and the chair of OFB, they're so fired up.
Oh.
I guess they're very excited. Mr. Babalta, I'd like to say thank you, and also Ms. Blas, thank you for the testimony that you provided. Last term, we had a very difficult time with GRTA, even to get the details. So thank you for providing us with the details and your mission and vision and your forward planning, because this is very important to us. There are many challenges that we are having within GRTA, and I'm glad that these challenges are being addressed. I just like to know some of the, I didn't catch it. I know that the chair of OFB mentioned that you are looking to fund in 2021 an additional breakdown of 16 employees.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Can we go over the unclassified, what position they are, and the classified 26?
Yeah, just
Yes, ma'am.
move the mic closer.
Proposed FY21?
That's correct. Fiscal year 2021, we currently have 10 authorized level at fiscal year 2020, and now there's going to be an increase on the request for an additional 16. So can you just give us a breakdown of the type of employees, the job descriptions on what these additional 16 will be filled as?
Madam Vice Speaker, 15 classified, actually, besides myself and the secretary, board secretary, the rest are classified employees. The bus drivers, 16. Our goal is to make these bus drivers classified so that, again, we can begin to provide some stability with our paratransit operations. And they've been, their performance have been exemplary. And, you know, we're hoping that the 16 positions will be funded. And again, with our taking over paratransit operations, instead of paying our contractor that amount of money, about $1.2 million, you know, we're going to take that money and fund our bus drivers.
Yes, thank you for that. And I understand that you are the contract that GRTA is currently in agreement with is with the Kloppenberg Enterprises. Is that correct?
The contract for
For the busing?
for the busing for fixed route, they're still doing it, and they'll do it until December 31 of this year, 2020. January 1st, 2021, we're going to take over a fixed route.
January 1st, 2021.
Correct, ma'am.
GRTA will be fully transitioning into
Yes, ma'am.
their own operation.
Correct.
Outside of any contract.
That's correct. And you know, for your information, I've done some research in this regard, and the island of Kauai in Honolulu, in Hawaii, currently manages the overall operation of their transit system, same as the Golden Gate transit system. It's fully managed by, and the big reason for that is, you know, when we're dealing with contracts, especially with transit, we're limited within the confines of the contract. When we take over, we have the capability, at least to work with our people, to provide you know, more support for our riders. So.
And will the bus fees, will those transition also to the rate of the fees to ride the bus? Is that going to transition? Is that going to increase?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. And then by January 2021, we see the mobile application of the transportation management system, where we can purchase bus passes and pay for our passes via our personal mobile phones. Is that going to be in operation as well in January 20? This is just a couple months from now.
That's correct, ma'am. I just want you to know that our hope is to tremendously minimize cash and tickets. So, on the other hand, we are focused on working with our riders, and either they pay with smart cards or pay with their credit card, or even cash and buying tickets. As a matter of fact, we're also in some of our mayor's offices. We have bus tickets that are being sold at their location.
Okay, and when you move into this transition, you'll no longer be leasing leasing buses. So you will have to be providing your own maintenance, or will you be on another maintenance contract for the vehicles that GRTA has?
Thank you for the question, Madam Vice Speaker. We will be doing preventive maintenance, and we will be doing minor maintenance. With major maintenance, until we have our own facility, we're going to continue to contract that out. And I just want you to know that ever since we've started doing preventive maintenance and minor maintenance, we've reduced the maintenance cost tremendously.
Okay, thank you. The reason why I'm asking is because we have in your org chart one automotive mechanic supervisor, but I don't see other mechanics underneath the automotive mechanic supervisor in your org chart. So are we foreseeing in 2022, or is this just going to be the automotive mechanic supervisor is going to be monitoring the vehicles and working with the contract to maintenance?
We are fortunate to receive funding from the Federal Transit Administration, and with that we're able to hire limited term auto service workers, and those auto service workers are working with our automotive supervisor to do preventive maintenance and minor maintenance. And I want you to know also that, in our preparation for our new facility where we're going to have a maintenance part of that facility, I've contacted and met with the Department of Labor apprenticeship coordinator. I want these 4 auto service workers to go through the apprenticeship program. And with that, hopefully we'll have an automotive supervisor, maintenance supervisor, plus journeyman, and that will give us some credibility with our transit system. So yes, we have other people besides our maintenance supervisor who's doing maintenance for our buses and vans.
Thank you. And then the programmed $500,000 from FY20 Federal Transit Administration funds for park and ride at Dededo, and you're going to include establishing commuter routes to Agana, from Agana to Navy, and to Hotel Row, to Tumuning, and GCC to UOG. So are these in addition to the routes that you are doing today?
That's correct, ma'am. That's correct.
Okay.
And for your information, I've met with the mayor of Dededo, and she's content. As a matter of fact, she's meeting with the director of land management to survey the old flea market. And once surveying is done and we get the map, I hope to work with Senator Teresa Lahi to introduce legislation so that we can have that property and become law, because FTA will not allow us to use that $500,000 unless we own the property. And the most important reason for that is because in the past, as you know, where the mayor of Agana is located, that used to be mass transit, and it was taken away from the mass transit.
Yes.
So the FTA has come out with the stipulation that unless GRTA has the property under their name, they won't allow us to use any FTA funds for building.
And so when do you need to show proof that GRTA has that property under the agency?
As soon as legislation is introduced and the governor signs that bill into law.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this bill is already in file, is that what that is?
It's being worked on, ma'am. The mayor's working with Department of Land Management to get the surveying accomplished.
So we haven't, the property is not surveyed yet?
Not yet, ma'am, not yet.
Okay. So as soon as you get it surveyed, the bill can be written and perhaps we can have a hearing for
That's
that?
correct, ma'am. We're focused on that, and I have staff members working on it.
Okay. Yes, I'm very impressed with the big leaps that GRTA has made in the past year and a half. And you're the first agency so far that hasn't really blamed any setbacks to COVID. And I see you forging forward. So, great work, Mr. Babauta. And also, thank you for really caring for our disabled, the disabled people within our community, because it was a great injustice to them last term. They suffered many, many injustices with the transit. And so I'm hoping that when I go to ride the bus, I don't have to wait 2 hours anymore, to give it a test ride. So January 2021, I'm going to be standing at a bus stop and giving a test ride, okay? And I'll let you know if it's...
Madam Vice Speaker, my staff and I are really focused on taking over in January 2021, and we are working hard.
All right, thank you, and thank you to the team at GRTA for this, for their mission and their vision and the enormous leaps that you guys have made in the past year and a half. Thank you very much for your service to our island community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice. And just so my colleagues will understand, one of his statements was laser focus.
Yeah.
I think that's a result of being a retired Air Force. You aim high, and you're doing good. And you have to admit, Mr. Sell, is that your background was in transportation in the Air Force. So this just happens to be your cup of tea.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. You're the right man for the job. I look forward to your success. Senator Regine Bescoli, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much. Thank you, Director Babauta. Thank you, Ms. Bloss, for being here. Director Babauta, Public Law 30-5 authorizes GRTA to generate revenue from parking fees, from advertising, from franchising. Has GRTA done anything to supplement their operating costs this fiscal year?
Ma'am, we're using federal funds. We have the bus fares, and of course local funds, and that's a very good question. But I have some people already in the works. As a matter of fact, in all honesty, I'm going to draft a letter to the Attorney General's office to review the contract that we've put together, to see whether that contract is valid, and once it's valid, we're going to begin to communicate with those companies who are interested in advertising. Even the Army National Guard out of Washington, D.C., has approached us to advertise on our buses. So that's a very important part in raising monies. And of course, public parking, Yeah, so.
That's really good to hear, Mr. Babauta, just because, the reality of our situation is that with this COVID pandemic and with this tank in tourism and in many of our industries, we're just looking at a very realistic and very stark reality of what we're going to be facing in terms of the budget. And it's a huge, a lot of pressure on the general fund and on funds to fund our agency. So we just need to be a little bit more creative in ways that we can generate revenue. And since you're already authorized to do that, I think the committee would be best served in trying to push you in that direction and see what else you can bring in to augment your budget. You mentioned earlier in a response to the chairman that you received about $2.7 million from the CARES Act. Is that correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
Can you detail how this money is being spent?
Senator Biscoli, right now we've programmed to spend $1.7 million to buy 24 passenger buses, 8 24 passenger buses that will support our commuter routes. we're looking at spending $5,000 for supplies, personal protective equipment, and the rest we're going to use to hire our 20 bus drivers for taking over fixed route.
I'm not sure if there's any wiggle room in that budget, Mr. Babauta, but you know that bus stops continue to be an issue. There are sometimes no signs, no protection for riders if they get caught in the rain, just a lack of information at these designated bus stops. And I took the bus home, from home to work, and not only did I experience over an hour delay, but a majority of that time was spent with the bus driver opening the door and answering questions to other riders, and that information could be easily shared with signage, proper signage, and proper information about the schedule, about when the next bus would be coming, phone number, so if anybody's waiting there, they could even borrow a phone from another rider and ask when it would be coming. So I just wanted to ask you if this budget, this current budget that you're asking for, or if CARES money can be used to provide these resources for proper signage.
Senator Biscali, thank you for that question. Actually, we've already put together a proposal for the board to approve with regards to the signage. And the signage will have the route of that bus stop and also the schedule for that bus route. And as soon as the board gives us the green light on that, we're going to move on. The other thing is that in doing some research with regards to transit system, the old ways of transit operations where you send buses from one stop to another with the hope of picking up riders, it gets very costly because there's no guarantee that when you go from one bus stop to another, there may not be a rider there. So what we're hoping to pursue, and we're working on it very conscientiously, is to create a ride, a mobility on demand, an Uber type transit system that will enable us to use technology to allow people to schedule their rides, and that instead of cars will be vans that will be going around to pick up people from designated areas going to, for example, the proximity of Tamuning, so that instead of going to a bus stop, that van will be picking you up within a block or two from where you live. So that's a transit system that we're hoping to get going in FY21 also. I really want you all to know that, GRTA has been in existence for 10 years. And the year and a half that we've been on board, I'm thankful that I've been able to motivate and bring my team together to pursue the goal of providing Guam an adequate transit system. So within the next year or so, building our facility and all of that, bringing technology on board, I want to make sure that with my team, we'll be able to provide Guam a reliable and safe transit system. But your points are very valid, Senator Biscali. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Babauta. It's really good to be able to hear that the idea of an on-demand system, I think, will help us to just maximize efficiency and, decrease the amount of money that we're spending, quite frankly, if these routes aren't being serviced, and we can think smarter about how we can deploy our resources. So that's really good to hear. The Vice Speaker had mentioned that, over the past few years, it's been a real struggle to get answers from GRTA, and we have been in hours and hours and hours of these oversight hearings with the previous director. It was really disheartening. We went from 7 out of 23 buses and vans operational, as you detailed in your presentation, but today we're at 17 out of 23. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the oversight chair mentioned some issues with regards to the bus procurement delay. So can you just share that information with the committee? Is it an issue with DOA? Because they're scheduled to come before us in the next few days, or what's the problem? What's the holdup with these 10 buses?
Madam Chair, Senator Biscali, we've been trying our best to work with GSA, and this issue has been escalated up to the highest level in the administration, the governor of Guam. I met with her this afternoon before I came here, and met with her and the lieutenant governor and the acting chief of staff. My board chair was there, and we're committed to sit down with GSA to engage in dialogue and do whatever we can to expedite the purchasing of buses. Because, we had the federal funds. And the other thing really that I'm touched is the fact that, we have all these federal funds, and our inability to use them doesn't portray a good picture for GRTA at the federal level, And that's why it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we use these federal funds, so that at least the federal folks will know that we're serious and focused on what those funds are intended for. But the governor is aware of this, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Babauta. GRTA has taken over Paratransit from the contractor, and as a consequence, I'm looking through the staffing pattern. It looks like you've increased staffing levels of over 4 times. So, are you able to provide the committee with any tangible results? I know you took over in January. Do you have any data that you can share with us about ridership? I know that we're also experiencing some challenges related to COVID and social distancing measures and other things like that. But are you able to share any
Sure.
tangible results with the committee today?
Senator Biscali, ever since the governor declared Guam under public emergency, we've been able to provide our paratransit riders with all the rights that's needed. We have never denied. We used to have right denials. Now we don't have right denials. We are currently providing over 150 rights a day for our people with disabilities. When restrictions are reduced, we're going to increase that number up to over 200 rights a day. We used to have about 500 paratransit riders. We have more people who are signing up now because they're realizing that we've been able to provide good support. When you call GRTA right now, the phone will be answered in minimum time. Before, I have a text message here from the executive director of Special Olympics,
Right.
saying that the treatment that his Olympians get from their previous contractor is not good. So with that, I can assure we've been able to not deny any person with disabilities any rights at all. And I invite you and the rest of the senators to come by and take a look at how we handle our operation. I can tell you that at 4 o'clock in the morning, my bus driver supervisor is there to make sure that our bus drivers are ready, that they have the resources to operate the bus, and they're ready to roll out at 4:30 to pick up the first ride at 5 o'clock in the morning for dialysis.
Thank you, Mr. Babauta. Thank
Those
you.
kind of things, yeah.
With regard to the drivers, are those limited term appointees or full-time employees?
Right now, ma'am, they're limited term appointees, but again, the 16, we're hoping that if this budget should be approved, they'll be permanent. They'll be permanent, yeah.
Okay, so there's a plan to transition them into
That's
full-time
correct, ma'am.
employees. Okay, that's good to hear. And I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, just one more question. So GRTA is planning on taking over the fixed route in about 6 months or so?
That's correct,
Do you
ma'am.
have a plan that you can share with the committee about, how you're planning to maintain those services or hopefully even improve them?
Yes, we are going to, part of the transportation management system is going to support fixed route, where our riders will be able to know where the buses are at and schedule their rides. We have all the buses that are being used right now to transport people with a fixed route. We're recruiting drivers. Right now, we're about 30 drivers. About 30 drivers. We need 10 more. We have the buses. We have the resources to buy fuel and all of that. And we have funding from the Federal Transit Administration to allow us to buy more buses. Really, when you sit down and add up what the Federal Transit Administration has given us to buy buses, it's over $3 million. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Rabalta. I hope that you'll be able to share that list, the breakdown of the CARES Act funding with us, so we can just take a bit of a deeper dive. And it's also my hope, and I can work with the Oversight Chair to see if we can have an informational hearing to talk a little bit about the transition from the contractor to GRTA and what we can do to kind of assist along the way and make sure that this is a seamless and very positive transition for our people. I'm glad to hear about Special Olympics. But I know that there's a lot of people in our community, especially now, who are going to be really relying on GRTA for these services. They need to be clean, they need to be reliable, they need to be something that we can depend on. So thanks in advance for all your hard work and for ensuring that nobody goes without this service. Because as you know, I mean, people take GRTA to get to their dialysis appointments or doctor's appointments. Sometimes this can be a matter of life and death. So thank you for taking your job very seriously, and we'll hopefully work with you to continue to support your efforts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For your information, we're cleaning those buses twice a day. When those buses come in the afternoon, my folks are there to clean. When they come in at the end of the day, my people are there to clean. So those buses are being sanitized. And the other thing is that we're also buying plexiglass for our buses, so that we can maximize our buses. And those plexiglass are going to be put on the seats of the buses so that there will be some measures to protect people.
Thank you for that information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Regine. Senator Kelly Marsh, but before you ask that question, I got one simple question. I received a text from one of the OFB folks. Is part of the program to work, are you be working with public health, reference to the senior citizens in assisting in bus transportation also?
No, sir. They're on a separate contract.
That's separate. Okay. Well, then hopefully as you expand, maybe you'll take over that one, and then we can resolve that issue also.
Yeah, if public health, that's something that I can work with public health to.
Okay, good. And maybe you can get their funding, because you may be able to run that, pick up all the senior citizens wherever they're at and take them where they need to go. Thank you. Senator Kelly Marsh, title, please. Do you have any questions?
Sujuis Masi, Mr. Chair, and Sujuis Masi to both of you for being here. It has been really helpful testimony to be hearing of all of the different things that GRTA has been up to in the last year and a half. And I really appreciated that you have been working very diligently to assess the needs of this entity and figure out how to plan for its sustainability as best you can, and how to grow it, if you will, so that it continues to serve our community more of it and better. Looking for funding sources, that's always very important, and you've been doing that. Leveraging federal grants, again, incredibly important. That's just how our federal government works with us. And especially at this time, the more that we're leveraging those federal grants, it's always better for our community, but especially now when there's going to be less to go around. That's really serving us very, very well. And I did also appreciate that at the beginning of your testimony, that you started with outlining some of the issues that you inherited. That's important for us to remember, because perhaps sometimes we forget that, and it allows us to see what challenges you've been tackling and overcoming throughout this last year and a half. And forgive me if I've missed some of the answers to the questions. I tried to stick with everything, but I may have missed some of these answers here or there. When we were talking about the bus riding, I'm not sure if I heard you mention, we had DPW here the other day, and they were saying how this COVID-19 and social distancing, how it has incredibly changed their capacity on buses, that going from being able to have 40 to 60 students, now they can have only 10 to 12. Is there a similar situation, and how are you dealing with that at GRTA?
Senator Mars, thank you for asking that question. We are looking at the proposals from some of the companies that have responded to our bid, our request for proposal. You know, we're going to put plexiglass between the seats. So instead of having one rider and skip a seat and go to the next seat because there's no plexiglass, we're going to put plexiglass on those seats so that instead of vacating a seat in the middle, we're not going to do that. We're going to maximize the capacity of those buses. We realize the COVID-19 crisis and challenges, and we're currently facing it right now without those plexiglass. Like, for example, our vans. It used to be that we can transport 5 people on that van. Now we can only transport 2. So we have more vans going out there. We're, you know, the R-Bucks, the 17-passenger buses, until we put plexiglass on them, we're not going to be able to maximize those seats. So that's the avenue, the approach that we're going to be utilizing to maximize the capacity of those buses and vans.
And it's good to hear of your proactivity there, your foresightedness. Is this something that you're working on in conjunction with public health? Are they part of this process? Do they have anything to approve or weigh in on?
Actually, you know, we've been going online, and that's something that was mentioned in one of the webinars that I attended. And the other thing is that when you go to people's offices, you know, you have this plexiglass right in front of you and the person who's serving you. That's kind of like the approach that we're taking with regards to having plexiglass between seats, you know. It's like if they need to talk, the riders need to talk between themselves, they have a plexiglass in front of them to protect themselves. So through research and through, you know, what we're seeing, as a matter of fact, one of our board or directors suggested that to us also.
And it's good to hear that you're participating in those webinars. The entire nation, the entire world is dealing with this, and it's better that we're helping each other out. We're finding out what is working, what's being applied elsewhere, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel by ourselves every time. I imagine you have to get up pretty early to deal with the time difference. I've gotten up for some of them at like 3 a.m. myself, but they're very well put together and they're very informative, and then we get to hear across the nation some of that input. So that's
we wake up at 4 o'clock
hear.
in the morning to attend those webinars.
Exactly. And if I could just talk a little bit about the rates. Could you explain to us what the rates are for the riders, when they were last updated, and how they were arrived at? Just so, because I know sustainability is at the forefront of your thinking, and so, of course, we have to balance out what is amenable to our population and what could maybe help with sustainability. So if you could explain where your rates are at and how they were arrived at.
I'm sorry, sometimes I have a hard of hearing, to be honest with you. Can you repeat that question again, ma'am?
Sure. So for the bus riding rates, I'm just curious, I know you're trying to balance sustainability, but also affordability for our population. So if you could explain where our rates are at for our riders, and if there's a different rate at all for persons with disabilities, but also how those rates were arrived at.
Currently, ma'am, for paratransit riders, it's 50 cents per ride, and same as students. For a person who's not within the disabled population, it's $1.50 a ride, $4 for the whole day. I mean, those rates were put together by a group of riders and other individuals, and they arrived at that several years ago. But and then, of course, if we're going to raise the rates, we have to have a public forum and allow people to submit their inputs and give us some feedback, on perhaps maybe some information on the best ways to handle revenue enhancement. But that's how the rates were put together. And if we plan to raise those rates, we have to work with we have to conduct forums and allow people to come and share with us their ideas.
And it's very good that they are conducted in such manners. They do need some professional input, some public input, and a lot has to be thought out. Like I said, we really have to balance affordability because we're here to serve the public, but not only that, it's part of fueling our economy.
Yeah.
Those people need to get to their jobs, and to be able to do so in a manner that is workable, make sure that our economy continues to run because workers are getting to where they need to and things like that. So with the social distancing, with these additional buses and so forth, do you feel like the amount that you have allocated for fuel, is that going to continue to be enough, or do you think that that's something that might need to be reassessed? Is that something that is partly covered with CARES Act money because of social distancing possible differences?
Yeah, the funding that we're getting for CARES Act essentially is to address COVID-19 challenges, ma'am. And of course, it's not only us who are going out and buying more buses. Other transit agencies are doing the same. They're buying more buses to accommodate social distancing and, and making sure that the riders are safe. But, going back to your comments about growing the economy, you're right on target. Some of these people, there's one gentleman who lives down in Umatic, and he works up at the Guam International Airport. His only mode of transportation is through GRTA. So when we have adequate transportation that people can use to get to work and back, especially those who are jobless right now. I mean, they find jobs, they pay taxes. Hopefully, we'll reduce earned income tax, and social programs. But transit is a very vital part in growing an economy, even in Guam. So we're mindful of that, to be honest with you. Yeah.
So I may have missed the answer in there, and all of that detail was very good to hear. So thank you for sharing that. But do you feel like the money that you have requested? I think it was $100,000 and $794. Is that money for fuel? Is that going to continue to be sufficient, or because of some of our differences in maybe having to have fewer people in the vehicles, are we going to have to relook at that fuel, the cost?
Ma'am, that's adequate in the meantime, but if there's a need for us to have more funds to buy fuel, if we have the flexibility of our budget, we'll be able to maneuver the funds. The other is, if we can look at federal funds, use some of our federal funds. The federal funds that we are using, we've put together a program proposal for the Federal Transit Administration, and that's what they approve. If we're going to deviate from those proposals, we have to go back to them. So, but we are mindful of the fact that we may need more monies for fuel. Yeah.
And it's very good to hear that you're thinking of this ahead of time, and you did ask that the monies be in a lump sum so that it provides you that flexibility. And it sounds like as much as you can, you're going to live within your means. And I think the last question that I'll ask is about with these new buses. So new buses they sound very good for us, and I think they're going to serve us very well. And could you talk a little bit about whether these are fuel efficient and how they are perhaps or hopefully improved from some of the buses that have been available over the years in the past?
Yeah, the buses that we're ordering has to meet federal standards for fuel efficiency, for reliability, for safety. As a matter of fact, one requirement is the Buy America requirement, where the buses that we purchase have to have parts within them that at least 70% of them were made in America. In other words, a bus will have to 70% of that bus that put together, or the parts that put together that bus, 70% has to be made in America. So that's the Buy America requirement that the Federal Transit Administration requires all transit agencies to abide by. When we buy buses, it has to meet federal statutes and requirements, and one of them is the Buy America requirement. Yeah. So the other thing that I want you to know on the committee is that we worked hard on putting together 2 grant proposals. One of them is to buy electric buses. If we're lucky, we're hoping to get awarded maybe $8 million. That's what we asked for, to buy electric buses. The facility that we're building is going to have the infrastructure for electric buses, charging station, a larger, space for the bus to be maintained. So not only are we looking at buying buses now with fossil fuel, but we're also looking at buying buses, electric buses. Cleaner environment, less maintenance, more efficient. Yeah.
Excellent. And I guess if I can just throw in one last thing there, then will we have the capabilities of maintaining these electric buses? Are there any differences there or maybe there will be training for people within GRTA or elsewhere in the government?
We have to get our people trained, or we have to advertise, for people to for people who are able to handle electric buses. But definitely, we have to get our people trained. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we have some exciting things to look forward to, electric buses being one of them. Situus Maasi to both of you, to the Oversight Chair and the Chair of this hearing.
Senator Jim, do you have questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Babauta, thank you for your report. Really good. I appreciate it. Noticed again, we mentioned about the procurement package still pending. Just like you to explain a little bit more. You mentioned that you're working with Adaloop to get that expedited, but you're not the only department that has come to us regarding procurement issues and getting it done. If you can kindly explain what's the problem?
Senator Moylan, I'm not an expert on procurement, but I try to, as a matter of fact, I want you to know that when bidders go and ask us for information about procurement, and about delays and so forth, we directly tell them to contact GSA. I'm not sure, sir, really whether it's lack of manpower or, or leadership or whatever the case may be, but the governor has assured me that the the leadership of GSA that we will meet with them to address whatever issues they may have, because somehow I don't know if they don't understand our funding or requisition, but we're going to meet with them and iron out any concerns or problems that we may have. But Senator Molan, I'm sorry to tell you that, man, I don't want to step into their territory, but I can tell you that we try hard to communicate with them. Yeah. So perhaps maybe when it's time for them to come on board, that's something that you might want to raise.
I'll be sure to ask the question. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. Also on your report, make GRTA autonomous, allowed to manage procurement and human resource recruitment. Help me with that some more. Expand on that, please.
Thank you for asking that question. As you can see, in the year and a half, we've been working hard and making some big strides, but one of our challenges is in the area of procurement and hiring of people. And I feel very comfortable that if we have that opportunity to be autonomous, and the law allows us to do that with our board, but on the other hand, we need to let the legislature know. We're going to be able to make much better, bigger accomplishments, to be honest with you. Because right now, Ms. Kathy Blas forwarded some applications to be profiled, and based on our way of working, it's taken a bit longer than normal. So if we have that flexibility to hire our own, we can definitely take care of our manning problems. Like, for example, accounting. I feel very strongly that I need an accountant. I still don't have an accountant. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Also, one other question on your budget proposal here, your statement. Begin to private public parking except AB Wampad International Airport Authority. Can expand on that, please?
Yeah, the law, sir, Public Law 30-5, clearly states that GRTA has the ability to manage public parking in Guam on public properties, except for Guam International Airport and the Port Authority of Guam. So our perception of that is that, hey, this vacant space over here by ODOE, that we can put together, parking lot there and charge people to park there. Maybe put parking meters out on the road like back in the States. That's essentially what we're hoping to accomplish. Of course, we have to report back to the legislature and brief you all about our plan. But the Public Law 30-5 allows us to do public parking except for two places. And it's very clear, sir.
That's pretty interesting. I hope that works out for you. It's
Yeah.
revenue generating. So speaking on revenue also, okay, you get zero from the general fund, right?
That's correct, sir.
So your funds are coming from two places, the Guam Highway Fund and the Public Transit Fund.
Yes, sir.
Right? And you're using this is prior COVID figures. Do you know where we're at now with those two funding, the special funds? Do you have a projection of what you're asking for and what we are really seeing in the numbers?
I'll have Ms. Catherine Blas provide that information.
Based on our projection, we will have a shortfall of $31,000 based on our shortfall. But this, I believe, with the history of GRTA, with the exception of last fiscal year, I believe it was just under Mr. Babauta's leadership that we've actually used all the money in the accounts. So this will be our first year where we will actually be in the red.
Okay. 31,000 short on the special funds.
Yes, sir. 31,453 to be exact.
Okay. which pays for your salaries, I suppose.
Our shortfall is going to come out for our contractual services.
So for the increase on, you're looking at an increase on the special funds. What's the difference between FY20 and I'm sorry, not special funds, but personal services? Under the special fund, you're looking at an increase from FY20 to FY21, how much?
I believe that difference was, the difference from last fiscal year to this fiscal year, or FY 2021?
FY20 to 21. In other words, you're asking for more money, right?
Yeah.
What's the total
believe-
difference?
I believe, sir, our increase that we're asking for is about 58,000. Special funds, right here. Yeah. It's like 100, it's like 78,000. It's about $78,000 difference from our last fiscal year, our current fiscal year of FY20 to fiscal year 21. In special funds, our increase is about 78,000.
Senator Moylan, are you looking at the budget comparison provided by OFB, the first sheet, or are you looking at the breakdown? Okay, I'll have my staff, Mika, can you provide them the same sheet we have so that we're speaking on the same sheet, because
The budget digest?
stand by and she'll provide you that document. Because what we did was we sat through and we made a comparison that if you look at 2020 and 2021, in the Guam Highway Fund, it's about 219 difference, and then the 70,000 decreases in the public transit. And then I think Senator Moylan may be referring to, when you look at the summary from your budget digest, the one we just provided you a copy. Senator Moylan, if you can please restate your question so she can follow along on which column you're at, and then she can follow along on what you're referring to.
Right? This is our budget digest. So this is our request this fiscal year. This is our request this fiscal year. This was our request last fiscal year. So if I'm not mistaken, the difference is like 70.
So Senator Moylan, are you referring to contractual, or are you referring to supplies and materials, or equipment?
Or the overall,
Personnel services.
Personnel service, the very top.
Right.
right here.
I think that's referring to all your employees, your additional 16 you were referring to earlier,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what personnel services is, all
Correct.
employees.
For the
Yes.
16 bus drivers.
Right. So we're going from FY20 of 830 to FY21 1.5 million,
Yes, sir.
right? And that money is coming from the special funds?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Senator Moylan, Guam Regional Transit Authority is fully funded by special fund. There's no general fund. It's either coming from the Guam Highway or it's coming from the
Public transit.
public transit. So you would have to estimate that Guam Public Transit, which Guam Highway Fund is providing, the bulk of it is $3 million total.
And Senator Moylan, the other thing is that, before we're going to use that money, the difference to pay our contract.
Thank you for that. But speaking on these 16 new employees, how many are drivers?
They're old drivers.
They're all drivers? Okay. When was the announcement, or we're needing this to get funded first, and then you'll be making the announcement for these positions?
No,
sir. We currently have the 16 drivers. The 16 drivers are currently driving for us right now. They're current employees who are sitting on limited term appointments. And what we like to do with Mr. Babauta would like to bring them over to our local funds so that we can, there's sustainability or stability in providing paratransit services to our riders.
Okay, which you can fund with your budget, which you can project you can fund.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. I think I just got one other question. Drug testing. So I noticed there's no budget for drug testing.
We use federal funds for drug testing.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Appreciate the report. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Senator Moreland. Senator Sabina Paris.
Saduas Masi, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Sel and Kathy.
Hi.
I really appreciate your presentation. It's great to see such progressive work and how methodical you were in addressing the issues, and great to see the leadership and the work that you've done. Just, a couple questions. A lot of the questions are asked already. I just want to kind of touch up on a couple of things. So the procurement, the GSA procurement that's been mentioned earlier, is it an emergency procurement?
We submitted a $500,000 requisition for emergency procurement, and that hasn't been acted on as of this time, ma'am.
What is the timeline for the monies do they give you a deadline as far as to expend?
To spend that money, we have up until the end of the fiscal year. And with emergency procurement, according to GSA, when it's awarded, the vendor will have to deliver within 45 days. And, we ask that this emergency procurement be made possible so that, again, it will give us some flexibility with social distancing and also to provide rides for the additional number of paratransit riders who are continuing to apply for paratransit services.
It's just my opinion that it's it's not ideal to have emergency procurement for buses. So, I mean, there's still time to do an actual IFB. The GSA, they give 14 days from solicitation to bid opening. So there is time to still, if everybody prioritizes this project, it still can be done on a non-emergency procurement basis. So that's one thing I would, recommend. And also with the emergency, with the procurement itself, I think what would make it successful is that you have all the specs that that you want or that you're looking for, including including maintenance and possibly training. So if you can include in that package training for your staff to do the maintenance, or if they're going to provide the maintenance themselves, but eventually that could be turned over to the staff. I think that's something to think about. So there is still time. It just everybody has to be on it, considering that the timeline is at the end of the year. So I think the problem is the emergency procurement type of procurement that you went through. Unfortunately, it took this long, right? May. Now we're talking a year later, over a year later. It must be very frustrating, and
Actually, the May is, I may have put down a typographical error there, but the May submission was just a few months ago, a couple months ago. We just submitted that requisition in May of this year.
Oh, 2020, not 2019.
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think there's still time to figure this out and get it
Sure.
done.
Yeah, so hopefully when we meet up with GSA soon, we'll be able to iron that out. But we do have maintenance. We do have a maintenance contract, and we do have maintenance supervisor and workers to handle the maintenance part of the.
Yeah, the real key is getting the specs right, and
Yeah, we provided them with all the specs. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the other thing that I wanted to ask about, I noticed that electric vehicles was on your horizon. I'm really glad to see that. Considering that there's very little maintenance, there's no oil changes, from what I understand. Is that still something that you're trying to pursue?
Absolutely, and that's one of the big reasons why, ma'am, we reserved one of the space on our new facility for electric bus. There's going to be a charging station, the infrastructure for a charging station, and if we're successful and get that $8 million to buy electric buses, we're going to have more charging stations at the park and ride.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, we're focused on that because of trying to make sure that our environment in Guam is clean, and let people know that we're making good progress. We're in the 21st century, and my team and I are cognizant about that.
Great, thanks, Al. So GRTA is an autonomous agency, correct?
Not right now, ma'am. But by Public Law 30-5, it allows us to become autonomous.
Okay, so some of the things I believe is that that GRTA has the ability to charge franchise fees.
Yeah.
So what is your position on that for franchise
Well, I
fees?
mean, once we're bringing a planner and a program coordinator on board, and you see all these tourist buses that are roaming that are being used on Guam's highways. Those are in most cases, many of them are are like public transportation. So we can work with the companies and charge them with franchising.
So you have been utilizing that.
Yeah, we have the capability to do that.
Okay, but you haven't been charging.
Pardon me, ma'am?
Have you been charging?
No, we haven't yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I want to let the legislature know is that when we came on board, there were only 7 people. Now we have more people and we're making good strides.
Okay. And then your plan to privatize, I get it's great that you're looking at other revenue sources to put GRTA on its feet, without having to rely on, I guess, become more autonomous, I would say. I think that's a great idea. But have you actually mapped out the usage and where these areas would be most beneficial, most profitable, perhaps, for GRTA? Have you mapped certain locations, or which public parking areas are you looking to do that?
I've got my staff really. I've directed him to start looking at locations and determining how many parking slots we can have on those different locations, and begin to develop a plan. And of course, we have to come before this legislature to let them know about the plans and so forth. But we're looking at locations already, ma'am.
Is there a technical grant that you can apply for that would help kind of provide that, or the scientific approach in analyzing this?
As far as federal funds, I'm not aware of any of that right now, but if there are federal funds, grants that we can apply for, we'll do our best to take advantage of that.
Okay. Great. I have no further questions, and thank you so much, and it's great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Sabina. There being, I think all my colleagues have asked all the questions they needed to pose on you, Mr. Babauta. And that being said, the committee will conclude this budget hearing with the Guam Regional Transit Authority. The committee will continue to receive testimony. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator joe.s.augustin@gmail.com. Sizus Marcy for attendance and participation in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. And Ms. Bloss, thank you for standing by, Mr. Babauta, because you guys are working as a good team. This budget hearing on Bill 282-35 LS relative to the Guam Regional Transit Authority is now adjourned at 4:40. Please have a nice day. Thank you, sir.